Good evening, everyone, and we want to welcome you to the 7th annual Red Shield event. I'm Major Glenn Caddy, and we have Michelle with us from Wood TV8.
Yes.
We are here together in the beautiful Kroc Center on South Division, where we're going to spend the evening together just talking about the Salvation Army.
Yes, great to be here. And of course, Wood TV8, a huge sponsor and a huge supporter of the Salvation Army. It has been for years.
You'll notice that we're doing it differently this year because we're still unable to meet in person. But we are glad that you've joined us from wherever you are and allowed us to be into your living room.
Yeah, we're certainly glad that you're joining us. As we said, we've been able to work together this year, a lot of it virtually, a lot of it 6 feet apart. Right. But of course, that's how the world has been functioning. We are going to share a lot of things with you tonight. You're going to hear testimonials from all of our Kent County neighbors, plus an incredible message from John O'Leary that really is going to resonate with all the change and the adversity that we've all had to face this whole year.
We also want to say thank you to all those first responders out there. This has been an unusual and very trying year for them, and it's not over yet.
Not over yet, especially the healthcare workers.
That's right,
as well.
The healthcare workers. We've met a lot of them through the last several months, and we want to say thank you to them. We want to thank you, Michelle, and Wood TV8 for your support of the Salvation Army, and even this last year, our 30th annual Angel Tree campaign. Didn't look like any of the rest of them. So.
Right, but still, it was a great success, and we're able to help even more.
Right, it was twice as many families as the year before, and we did it safe distance, drive-through, and everybody seemed to go away happy.
Yeah, and of course, to thank most of all the people of Kent County and the generosity.
Right.
The support has really been there this year, especially.
Yeah, but very generous. And I also want to thank our Salvation Army staff. When a lot of other folks were working from home, we relied on them to come in, and they transitioned. They pivoted more than anybody can imagine. Changing the way we did things, going from in-person to virtual, telephone, online services. But they've been there to help the people who've come to us. Even here, the Kroc Center closed, and they went to a number of activities virtually, teaching classes and following up with their members. And Fulton Heights Senior Program went from meeting in person to drive-through meals, and they are now even doing their classes via Zoom. The seniors are meeting with them at home. So we've done a lot of changing this year. Yeah,
because even though we've had to change and really pivot, the need is still there. So you've been able to help, like you say, the seniors and people who need food assistance. That's all still been there.
Right, and again, great generosity from our neighbors and our friends here in Kent County have allowed us to provide food, shelter services, addiction recovery programs, senior care, child care, all of those things. We've been able to provide, again, looking differently, a little bit different numbers, but it's still happening.
Yeah, you do it all. I think people forget just how much you actually do.
Yes, it is a big umbrella.
Yeah.
And we're going to introduce for you in a minute a board member. Max Smith, who is a life member of the Salvation Army Advisory Board, which is a volunteer position. And Max is going to share with us why he volunteers with the Salvation Army, and then he's going to just give us a little introduction into our guest speaker for the evening.
Okay, great.
Hello, my name is Max Smith, and I've been involved in the Salvation Army Advisory Board for almost 35 years. One of the areas that really impressed me in joining the Salvation Army is that their faith values are very similar to mine. I go to a little Baptist church, and we preach God's love, God's salvation, God's caring, God's grace. And when you come to the Salvation Army, you find these same values being taught and preached and carried out. And the other area that's so impressive with the Salvation Army is how they carry their faith out into the community, doing so many things for the community, whether it's providing youth camp for kids that never would be able to go to camp before, providing food, providing shelter, disaster relief, so many areas that they cover, that they make a great contribution to our community. And the community wouldn't certainly be what it is today if it wasn't for the Salvation Army. Salvation Army in the Grand Rapids area touches so many lives, especially kids at Christmas time with the Angel Tree, with the areas of homelessness, people in need of food, people in need of counseling, people in need of assistance with getting off of drugs or getting off of alcohol problems. So Salvation Army is extremely important in our community, and it certainly wouldn't be the same without the Salvation Army. We're very excited to have John O'Leary with us tonight. He's got a tremendous story to tell, and I'm sure you'll be impressed and inspired with his message of God's love and care for him.
Well, thank you, Major and Michelle and friends of the Salvation Army of Kent County, for the absolute honor of joining you tonight to celebrate not only the incredible work that the Salvation Army of Kent County has done over the last 137 or so years, but who's counting, but also the opportunity we have to continue to affect lives, to improve lives, to make a difference in lives going forward. My name, as you just heard, is John O'Leary, and I have the privilege of speaking with you tonight about pivoting through adversity. And I want to give you tonight 2 key takeaways. Number 1, I want us to have something to grasp onto, to be supremely thankful for and grateful for in our lives. Whether we feel as if right now we are on top of the world, or we feel right now as if we are buried by it. I want us to have at least one thing that we are wildly grateful for tonight. So get ready for that. And then we might take a little pause, and then afterwards come back and give you something that gives us clarity around how we can take the next best step forward faithfully together. So those are 2 things that you ought to be expecting from me tonight. I'm looking forward to sharing with you a little bit of my story. I think everybody tonight has a story. So one of the things that unites us actually together is the fact that we have these stories that sometimes feel as if they reduce us to ashes, but they actually are the things that draw us closer to Christ, closer to kingdom work, and closer to the truth, that in spite of the adversities, the best of our journey even still remains in front of us. When I was a little guy, 9 years old, growing up in St. Louis, Missouri, 5-6 hours or so away from where you're all gathered tonight, I saw little kids in my neighborhood playing with fire and gasoline. Now, what these little guys would do is they would sprinkle some gasoline on a sidewalk, they would strike a match, they would stand back 2 feet for safety. Very risk averse. You would love these kids. They would then throw the match on top of the gasoline, and it would just dance to life. And when you are 9 and you are a male, this is awesome. You are watching liquid turn to fire. It's like a Harry Potter scene. And these are guys you look up to. They're practically men. They're 11. You're 9. And you think, if those 11-year-old men can do that and get away with it, what's the next sentence? That's right, so can I. It's powerful language when you're following the right shepherd, the right leader, the right voice, the right example. But if you're following the wrong shepherd or the wrong voice or the wrong example, it can take you right off the ledge. Community matters, and who we choose to do life with will inform the life that we live going forward. It's so wise, I think, that you chose to do part of your evening with us tonight at the Salvation Army, because who you choose to invest your time with will inform how you show up. That's a big deal. But it's also important to recognize this, my friends, family, leaders, servants, sons, daughters, citizens. Others are watching you, your children, your neighbors, those that you worship with, those that you do life with and work with. Always strive to give them an example that is truly worthy, because they are looking up to you. That weekend with my father at work and my mother out with a couple of my family members, a couple of my sisters, the house was mine. I was following the wrong example. It takes me into the garage. I bend over a can of gasoline, try to pick it up with one hand. It's too heavy. So I set the flame, it's a piece of paper that is burning right now, on the concrete floor. I bear hug a 5-gallon container. You know what's about to happen here. And I start to very carefully tip and pour. And before the liquid even came out, leaders, servants, family, and friends, what shows up first? Before the liquid, the fumes. In life, it's almost never the liquid that burns. It's, I think, one of the reasons why our faith is so important. because we can't just do life with our eyes. Faith is a critical element to the way we show up. It informs what we see and how we feel, what we think, and it ultimately provides the eternal lens with which we view our life. It also can allow us to see and harness and own and embrace fumes, the stuff that many others cannot see as clearly as you and I can with our faith. Well, that day, the fumes came out of this can of gasoline. That's the actual one in front of you right there. The fumes came out of that can, created this massive explosion, split the can in two, and picked me up, leaders, servants, family, friends, donors, supporters, friends, and launched me 20 feet against the far side of the garage. When we were little, we were taught and trained what to do when we're on fire. What are we supposed to do when we're on fire? Yell it out, class. That's right. This is interactive tonight, man. Let's have some fun. Let's roll up the sleeves a little bit. Take the jacket off. Stop, drop, and roll. That's what you're supposed to do when you're on fire. But what do you actually do when you're on fire? In particular, when you're 9. In particular, when you're scared. You panic. You run. You're nervous. You're in pain. You don't know what to do next, and so you just run for your life. We train up here, but we live and we serve from a much more sacred source. Our hearts. Our job as leaders, as servants, as donors, as contributors, as families, friends, as human beings, is to make sure that the training is not only head level, but also heart level, that our faith is not only a head level, but also heart level, that the two become one. Separate is not equal. That day, I panicked and I ran for my life. It was a decision that changed my life forever. One moment, I'm a happy, healthy, now I'm just going to zoom in so you all can see nice and clear. It's okay to nod your head right there. Extremely good looking. There you go, man. Nice little haircut. Turtleneck fit just right. Overalls were right. Christmas tree was up. Stockings were hung on the chimney with care in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. Mom and Dad were married. We'd never had any trials, never had any need for help from the outside world. But then the need would come. And then the tragedy would erupt. And then the fire would burn. And then life would be changed. And then our faith would be tested. And then the realization that we cannot do this thing called life by ourselves would become very clear to all of us. Salvation Army, you cannot do this thing called life, called recovery, called insecurity, called struggle, called life by yourself, but together, faithfully, generously, we can change the world. This is good news. We can change the world with the kingdom, with love, with Christ. One moment I'm this happy little guy, and then in this next picture is going to be really hard to look at, which means some of you may want to shut your eyes. Some of you may want to shut the eyes of your spouse over here, or your child over here, or a loved one over there. This is going to be hard to look at. So feel free to look away from the screen for a moment. But I found myself at one moment this little boy, and then in the next with this profound human need. A 9-year-old little boy lying there in the hospital bed, dying, no clothes, no skin, no chance. And I remember looking up at the bright light with one very clear thought. And for me as a 9-year-old boy, the thought that I had as the light is coming down toward me was, oh my gosh, my dad is what I'm going to kill you when he finds out. I knew my father's wrath. I knew he would be irate. I knew I let him down this time. I knew I got in trouble for far less than blowing up the old man's garage. I knew he was going to be mad. I did not fully understand that the prodigal son was not just a reading in church from time to time, and not just an example of our Heavenly Father, but that those who choose it can embody the prodigal father. That I would one day find myself that son coming home in need of a Savior, in need of love, in need of embrace, and in an emergency room indeed would find it in the form of my own earthly dad who lived out his own faith boldly, met me where I was. What a gift. What a gift. I think part of the mission for the Salvation Army is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ with no discrimination, to meet the needs of those desperate with no discrimination. I experienced that kind of grace, that kind of salvation, that kind of love as a 9-year-old boy from my dad. It set me free. I'm going to show you a picture of my dad. He walks into this room, marches over to me, looks down at me, and he says, "John, look at me when I'm talking to you." So I look up. I'm still expecting my dad to be mad and angry and judgmental. So I look up, and then he goes, "I have never been so proud of anybody in my entire life. And my little buddy today, this morning, I'm just proud to be your dad." And then my father says, "I love you. I love you. I love you." And as a little boy, hearing this kind of love from that kind of man, I remember closing my eyes tight and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, nobody told my dad what happened. He doesn't know. But Salvation Army of Kent County, he did know. And he also understood the power of preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ to meet the needs of humans, all humans, in his name, with no discrimination. It set me free, but more than that, it set him free. It set us free to begin the journey forward together. That did not make recovery easy. It did not make surviving easy. It did not make amputations and scars and bandage changes and physical therapy and occupational therapy and homelessness for a season easy. It just made the journey possible. That's the power of grace. That's the gift of that kind of love, man, to set a prisoner free. We received that. We received that. And we could not have done it by ourselves during that time. I needed my mom. I needed my dad. We needed the community. We needed people to take care of my siblings while we were homeless. We needed people to clothe us. All the clothes burnt up in the fire. We needed people to live out the gospel of Jesus Christ 2,000 years after he taught it through his own life, through his own example. And we were blessed to receive it. And the marketplace is hungry and thirsty and starving for that kind of love today. And the Salvation Army of Kent County models this into a marketplace that is desperate for it. We received that kind of love. And I received it not only from my dad, but this little boy who came home from the hospital received it also from his mother. They were a wonderful tag team. But my mother, I mean, she was tough. If I ask you the question right now, who was harder, your mother or your father? John, that's a close call, man. But most of us would probably have an answer. For me, it was actually my mom. She was tough love up and down, man. I came home from the hospital on a Saturday. On Tuesday morning, I'm seated in a little wheelchair, and I can't do anything. I'm a victim to my circumstances. And my mother, right here, makes a phone call that I think changed my life. She calls a piano teacher who shows up at my house later on that day. My siblings are all in school. I can't figure out why this lady's in my house. I know she's not there for me. I don't have any fingers. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm on a morphine drip. I'm a victim to my circumstances. My life has been cut short. There's no hope really in tomorrow. I know this, man. I know. And yet this piano teacher is now in my kitchen. So I look up at my mother and I say, Mama, why is she here? And I want you leaders and donors and sponsors and servants and Christians and seekers and sons and daughters and children to remember well how my mother responds. Look at this lady. You may want to write down word for word how she responds in a very divided time in our society, in our marketplace, in our world. Mama, why is she here? That was the question and her response. She doesn't say a word. She just takes action. She walks into the kitchen a little bit farther. She bends down in front of me, and she unhooks the brakes of my wheelchair. Preach the gospel of Jesus Christ at all times, and if necessary, use words. That quote is attributed to St. Francis, but that's what's happening here. She then liberates me from these chains that bind, that wheelchair, those excuses, those scars, the pity party, takes me down a hallway. I look up and I say, Mama, where are you taking me? She doesn't say a word. She just keeps going. She moves. Momentum is underrated. Takes me down a hallway, locks the brakes, walks out. A piano teacher named Mrs. Bartello sits down alongside of me. You can't do life by yourself. She puts her arm around me like this and she says to me, John, this is going to be really, really hard. It just is. But we can do it together. Man, that one plays in 2021. Write it down tonight. John, this is going to be really, really hard. It just is. But we can do it together. And with that, this lady takes out a little number 2 pencil and she puts it on my right hand. The hand is wrapped in bandages. There is no skin. There are no fingers showing. So she then takes 3 rubber bands, tethers the pencil with the rubber band, takes out some sheet music and says, now where were we? And for 30 minutes, a little boy with his left arm in an airplane splint, his right hand with a pencil protruding from it, is playing the piano, waiting for 30 long minutes for that lesson to end so he'll never have to do it again. But then painfully, about a week later, the doorbell rings and she came back into my life. And then a week later, she comes back, and then a week later, and then a week later, for 5, not weeks. Come on, Salvation Army, not months. 5 years of love, of service, of grace showing up in my life, reminding me it is not easy, but we can do it together. So tonight, I told you I wanted you to have something to be grateful for. What is that? Is that your faith? Is that where you live and the roof over your head? Is it the promise of salvation? Is that hot coffee, cold water, food to eat, opportunity to impact? All these things, the country where you live, the opportunity to strive to make it even better. What are you grateful for? And let me add one more thing to that list tonight. The name of one person who inspires you to become the best version of yourself. I'd like you for a moment to just reflect on one person who inspires you to become the best version of yourself. A parent, a pastor, a coach, a friend, Major, Michelle, maybe someone within the Salvation Army, maybe someone we serve through our outreach, maybe a child or a grandparent or a guardian or a neighbor. One person. And tonight, rather than you just staring at me for 30 minutes, that would rock every one of us to sleep, including myself. And I'm the one talking. I'd like you to grab your phone if you have it nearby. Grab your little phone and text her or him or them. Let them know that you love them. Let them know you're praying for them. Let them know you're grateful for them. So rather than just thinking about who you're grateful for, I'd like you to share that gratitude with someone in the community right now. Maybe they're watching the video with you right now. That would be cool. Let her know. Let him know. Let them know. And while you're reflecting on all this and the answer to this question, what we thought would be cool is to play the piano for you tonight. So I'm going to hit play here in a moment on the song that I learned after I came home from the hospital. I have had the opportunity of playing this several times at large conferences. Tonight I will play it for you. But rather than looking at the screen, look at your own phone. Share the love. Let them know you're grateful for them. This song that you're about to hear tonight is the first song I learned to play without fingers. And I played for you tonight because my mother insisted I relearn this song. It's her favorite song. And maybe for some of you listening in right now, maybe some of you might find that it's your favorite song too. Here it is. And it always starts slow.
Haven't started taking notes, take them now, baby.
The crowd goes crazy. Don't worry, I won't make you listen to it twice. I won't make you hear it twice. But that one person, Mom, Dad, my amazing grandparents, all four of them, my brother, who saved my life the day I was burned, my sisters, who have shepherded me forward, my wife, who shows me grace and forgiveness every day of my life, my children, who remind me of the beauty and the brilliance of a living, loving God as revealed through children. Who are yours? Did you thank them? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to grab a big sip of ice water right over here. I'm going to kick it back over to my friend Major and Michelle. I have a feeling, Major, would you mind sharing with us who your person is that you're grateful for tonight? And then, my friends, I have a few other thoughts that I wanted to share with us, not only on what we're grateful for, but on how we can live that gratitude going forward. So I'm going to kick it back over to my friends Major and Michelle right now.
Okay, thank you, John. And I'll start. I want to say that I'm really grateful for my two teenage daughters, especially this year. When this all started happening in the pandemic, of course, they really had to leave school and do a bunch of different things. And the way they handled it with such grace and just not being selfish about it, which I feel like a lot of us probably were. I really learned, a big lesson from them and still do. So certainly grateful for that.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
John made me think. I thought a long way back to my very first Salvation Army officer, pastor, that met me when I was in college. I was a young college student that felt he had a call on his life to ministry, but didn't know where that was going to be. So the captain took me under his wing, got me involved as a volunteer, and soon that calling was solidified, and I was off to the training college. And now in June, I'll be celebrating 42 years of ministry with the Salvation Army because one man invested in my life.
Yeah.
It's just very humbling when you stop and think about it, but it's also very empowering that one person can make a difference. Yeah. And that's important.
Amazing.
And we like to share with you how we can make difference in the lives of people that come to us in the Salvation Army.
Well, my name is Letha Olsen. My story is that when I was young, I grew up in a family, and our family didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. So I remember my mom and dad taking us for a ride about 20, 30 miles away, and it was to a city, Elma, which is in Gratiot County. And so we needed some food, and they needed some help financially on some bills, and so they knew exactly where to go because someone had told them about it. And fortunate for us, so when we get there, I remember, just being just young, probably maybe 7, 8 years old. And so we went up there, and they gave us a big food basket, they gave us clothing, they gave us, and at this time, this is like right around Christmas. So I got to see Santa Claus ringing the bell, so that's not something that we see in Middleton, which is, like I said, about 20, 30 miles away. And because it's a very small community. So yeah, that's my first bout with Salvation Army. I work with a family outreach center, and so, which I am farmed into Kent County Correctional Facility, and I work with the girls there in recovery. I'm a peer support specialist recovery coach, and so I work with the girls, and so we prepare them inside to come out into the community so that they can learn to become independent. And so part of that becoming independent, when you have addictions and stuff, is learning to ask for help. So part of that is, you have to learn to ask for help for food if you don't have it, So Salvation Army came to my mind again, and come walking in, and probably was less than a month ago when I did that. And yeah, and so the funny side of that is, so after I had brought her here, she had taken some stuff home, one of the clients, and paperwork, information, and so she had seen on one of the information that the help that she was in need of, and so she called here yesterday and talked to someone. So I mean, you know, it trickles down. In my time of need, there was a time when I can say that I was in between jobs and just in need, you know, and so coming here and getting help, you know, and I'll say that, and that's been real recent, you know, with one of my clients that I brought in. You know, I brought her in, and I seen that she was very willing, and it's like, you know what, I don't think there's anything wrong. There's no pride in there, you know, that disqualifies me for asking for help if I'm in need too. So, I mean, if you're in need, you're in need, you know. What better place to come? If you're struggling, there's hope.
And now we would love to introduce you to Bobby. He has been a volunteer in the food pantry for more than 10 years now.
My name is Bobby Garman. This is going on my 13th year. I volunteer in the food pantry, and I enjoy it. It gives me something to do, and I love the people that I work with. I would say it makes me a better person. I enjoy it and helping people out. I like fulfilling their orders, and I just enjoy it. Well, I had this one client come in one day. He told me, it's kind of funny, he wanted some peanut butter. He had 6 children. I gave him a 6-pound can of peanut butter. So when he came back 30 days later, he told Deanna, says, you tell that guy back there, I don't want no peanut butter. I told him, I said, you don't want no peanut butter? He said, no, I still got some of that 6-pound can you gave me. I thought it was kind of funny. But no, I think everybody should, if you got the time to volunteer, do it. It'll give you something to do, it'll strengthen your mind. Like I say, it'll give you something to do, and you could get to know people more.
So the Salvation Army has helped thousands of senior citizens. Here are a few letters that we've received from them.
How many times have we heard, feed the hungry? Well, in my opinion, the Salvation Army Senior Program realizes there is more kind of hunger than physical, and the senior program fulfills them all. There's the physical hunger that their feeding program serves, the mental hunger of companionship, human contact, knowing that someone knows that you're important and worthy of attention. When the pandemic started, a weekly call from someone at the program would call and see that we were all right, and if we needed food or anything, and this really moved me. There's also the spiritual hunger. In my 71 years on this earth, I know I have never missed an Easter or Sunday Mass. This is the first year there was no service. The senior program never lets us forget where all of our strength comes from, with daily devotions and prayer, even for those who want to know the Lord better. The whole program is based on our well-being, physical, mental, and spiritual. Where else could seniors go in this busy life, where their children are working or have their own families now? A place like the Salvation Army Senior Program is the light at the sometimes long and lonely tunnel of old age, where we all see that wonderful light at the end.
Here's another one. This says, my name is Faith Motti. My husband Rod and I attend the senior citizen activities at Salvation Army. We've met so many nice people at the bingo and luncheons and games and really enjoy all the things we do there. The staff is always working to make things better for us. They also deliver meaningful stories of the wonders of God in our lives. This has been a truly difficult year for the world, but God is always watching over us. The staff made weekly phone calls when the center had to be closed, and when possible, gave us hot meals and some supplies as we drove through the parking lot. It was truly needed and appreciated. This program is really necessary for our emotional health. Another one says, I was very impressed by the phone calls by Chris and Renee every few weeks, checking on us during COVID, and the kindness shown upon hearing of my son's passing. We've been praying for him for some 29 months. The Salvation Army is like a second family to me. I missed them while they were closed. I miss the friends I made there too. Thank you for everything you do. Here's another one. I was amazed at how often Salvation Army called to see if we needed anything. My neighbor is stay at home because of illness, and they even brought her groceries. I believe they went out of their way to help us, and they were genuinely interested in our welfare. And finally, thank you so much for your help. The isolation has been very hard on me. I was so glad to come back to receive puzzles to do and food. When Salvation Seniors opened again, so many people greeted me and were friendly. I felt missed and valued. I'm no longer as lonely and depressed. I've made a very nice new friend during the food distribution, which I really needed to feel less isolated and valued. Thank you so much.
We hope that you enjoyed those local stories of our neighbors who were helped through the Salvation Army here in Kent County. Now we look forward to hearing what John has to say for us in the second part of his message for us this evening on pivoting through adversity.
Well, I love the Sharon. I love the inspiration that we're celebrating tonight. I love the God that has breathed life into our days and hope for our tomorrow. And speaking of hope for our tomorrow, how do we live into that sense of gratitude, that ability we recognize in our life that today, you and I, sit on the shoulders of giants, that we can't do it by ourselves. And we recognize because of the generosity of those who've come before us, we also recognize the ability we have to influence and be generous to those who are going to come alongside behind us. How do we do that faithfully? How do we do it boldly? And how do we do it consistently going forward? Well, that's what I wanted to celebrate with you as we step into the second half of pivoting through adversity. I want to give you tonight a specific question to ask yourself to ensure that if you have received one talent, you multiply it. If you got 2 talents, baby, you multiply it. You got 5? Let's multiply it. Let's multiply our life, our ability to impact through the lives of those we are called to serve, to preach the gospel to. So how do you do that? Well, I received that kind of love, that kind of grace as a little boy in hospital. Not only from my parents, we got, man, we had people open up their doors to my siblings and my parents. We had people writing letters of support and prayer from throughout the United States and around the world. There were people planting trees for our family in Israel. It was a global, generous movement. And yet, as we come a little bit closer back to St. Louis, my own hometown, there were a lot of people activated Kent County to make a difference in my own backyard. And it's one individual, one thing that he did, one question that he asked that I wanted to share with you tonight. Okay, so here it is. A little boy named John got burned. You heard that. They tied me down to a hospital bed, so I can't move my arms or my legs for, 5.5 months. My lungs were burned, so they put a hole. You can still see the scar of it right here in my neck. So I can't breathe on my own. I can't eat or drink. I can't talk. And not only that, but my eyes are swollen shut, so I can't see. It's a very difficult situation, ripe with despair and agony, struggle, loneliness, and pain. You ever been there? We all have. Maybe not on a burn center bed, but maybe with an insecurity, maybe with an addiction, maybe with a longing. We've all been there. You're not alone. It's one of the beautiful things that actually unifies us tonight. And it also unifies those that we are called to serve through our lives. Me too. I've been there. I spent months like this tied into a hospital bed, struggling mightily, and growing up in my own backyard of St. Louis, Missouri, trying to pivot through adversity by myself. There was one individual who showed up. As a little boy, I loved baseball. There's my arch, that's my downtown. There are my Cardinals, that's the stadium. And the way we used to watch baseball was through the lens and then through the voice of this guy. His name was Jack Buck. Jack Buck was the voice of the St. Louis Cardinals baseball outfit for 49 years. I never met the guy. He's a celebrity. He's a big shot. I'm a 9-year-old little nobody. But I loved him, and I loved his voice, because it was the voice I listened to every night on the radio growing up. And then I got burned on January 17th. And then on the 18th of January, 28 hours after I came into the hospital, I'm laying in this little bed dying. And then the door opens up. I hear footsteps, a chair, a cough. And then I hear one voice, the voice of one individual who shows up in my life. His name is Jack Buck, and he whispers these words into my darkness. He says to me, "Kid, wake up. You are going to live. You are going to survive. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark will make it all worthwhile. Kid, are you listening? Good. See you soon. And with that, the gentleman stands, he walks out, and he leaves a little boy tied down in darkness by himself, but on fire for hope and faith and love and the next best step in my journey forward. I'm no longer alone. There's a reason for me to take the next step. It might be hard, but now there's a goal in mind. Jack Buck came into my life one time. I learned from my father years later when Mr. Buck walked out of that room. He made his way down the hallway. The gentleman leaned his head against the glass door, and he just started weeping, which, of course, you and I all know tonight is the sign of great weakness. Yes? The shortest verse in Scripture. Do you know it? Jesus wept. In the agony of a friend's death and the weeping around him, and for dear friends who are also weeping at the loss of their brother, and the whole community, the brokenness of the situation and of the world, he wept. That's not weakness. It's Christ embodied. It's love and grace embodied in the human form through emotions. It's a healthy thing. Jack wept. One of the nurses walks over to him, kneels in front of him, looks up and says, "Are you all right?" And he says, "I'm not sure. That little boy won't make it, will he?" And the expert on her knees looks up and says, "Mr. Buck, there is absolutely not a chance. It's just his time." When this diagnosis shows up in Kent County, when it shows up in your marriage, when it shows up in your singleness, when it shows up in your nation, when it shows up with an addiction or whatever, when it shows up in your life, what you choose to do next, the prayers you choose to offer, the question you choose to ask, and the mindset with which you choose to ask it will indeed inform what happens next. What this man does, he takes it home, he cries, he prays, he reflects, and he journals on one life-giving question. What more can I do? What more can I do to make tomorrow better than today? The following day, there is a little boy laying in darkness in a hospital bed with burns on 100% of his body and no chance at tomorrow. Until one person who asked this question answers it by showing up the following day into my life. He comes into that darkness and he whispers the words, "Kid, wake up. I'm back. You are going to live. You are going to survive. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. We'll make it all worthwhile. See you soon." And then he leaves. And then the following day, he comes back. This man continued those visits for the 5 months that I was in hospital, serving, loving, encouraging, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ and meeting the needs in his name without discrimination. That's what's going on here. Jack loved this little boy well and encouraged that little man to fight on, to dream, to aspire, to stretch, and to enjoy one day John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. It was a celebration of life that Jack Buck was absolutely part of. But he learned that night, I can't do anything with my hands. If they tie a pencil to it, I guess I could play the piano a little bit, but outside of that, I can't do anything. So the following day, he asked this question: what more can I do to serve a little boy, to make a difference for someone in need, to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ? What more can I do? What more can I do? And the way he answers it was like this: "Kid, if you want a second baseball, all you have to do is write a thank you letter to the man who sent the first." Jack Buck knew I could not write, but he also knew the power of inspiration. And for the first time since being burned, a little boy with no fingers invited his therapist to come into his room to push his arms together, causing great pain. But there was a goal in mind now: a baseball. I wrote a note to a guy named Ozzie Smith, mailed it off. And 2 days later, I got a second baseball in the mail. This one from Jack Buck, with a note that said, "Kid, if you want a third baseball, Mama, bring me a pen. So she does. And I write a note to Jack Buck, and the following day I got a third baseball. This one from Stan Musial. And then a couple days later, I got another baseball. And then another baseball. And then I got another baseball. And then another. And then another. 1987, one very busy guy preached the gospel of Jesus Christ and met the needs in his name without discrimination by sending 6D baseballs to this little man, teaching that little fella how to write, how to stretch, which freed me not only to go on to grade school, but high school, college, graduation night. Jack Buck comes to the celebration with a package and a note. And before I show you what he gave, or I read to you the note, first the question he asked. And Salvation Army leaders, family members, friends, colleagues, it is a worthy one for you and I to ask tonight. What more can I do to make tomorrow better than today? For myself, for my Creator, for my spouse, for that addiction, for that dream, for that person I'm called to serve, to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ without discrimination. That's powerful in a marketplace that seems to discriminate against almost everybody on every side of the aisle, on every issue, man. Cancel one another out always. But we're preaching without discrimination. None whatsoever. Meet the need. Just meet the need. Go. What more can I do? What more can I do to see a need and to fix it, to make a difference wherever I am, whatever I'm focused on in this moment? It's a worthy question. That night when he asked the question, the answer he came up with was this. Kid, this means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you too. This is the baseball that I received when I went into the Hall of Fame. It is made of crystal. It is priceless. There's only one like it in the entire world. And then he wrote, don't drop it. Don't drop it. It's yours. It's yours. This priceless gift. When I think back to that gift, this baseball, and those words, this means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you too. Always, always, I'm reminded of Jesus on the cross. This means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you too. It's yours. Free. Just say yes. Grace. Just come. It's just grace. But you got to say yes. You got to take the next right step. Grace is such a gift. And for those of us in the marketplace who are able to provide it to a community that is longing for it, to help those with insecurity, food insecurities, housing insecurities, addictions, meet them where they are. See the need, fix it. What a gift. Kid, this means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you. Enjoy, it's yours. This is the baseball that I received when I went into the Hall of Fame. This gift taught a little boy to not only receive, but to dream, to achieve, to strive forward. I think it led to a little boy that did not see beauty in his own scars to eventually confidently look in the mirror to see something beautiful and to step in and ultimately meet someone else who was beautiful named Elizabeth Grace. And through that marriage, I've been blessed with this little man named after an inspiration, Jack, a mentor who gave me a little boy, Jack, who's got a little brother named Patrick. My wife likes to dress them like this. I prefer to dress them like this. Jack and Patrick have a little brother named Henry. Out here in Missouri, man, they just keep showing up. Jack and Patrick and Henry. And I believe finally, but I guess you never know, a little baby girl named Grace and even a puppy dog named MMA to boot. It's a beautiful picture, but only developed through God's grace and by the community showing up. They saw a need and they fixed it. They preached the gospel of Jesus Christ. They met the needs in his name without discrimination. Trust me, I received it. I believe they universally and individually were bold enough to ask and then to answer this question. What more can I do? What more can I do? To make a difference, to be bold, to be generous, to be faithful, to be kind, to meet the need where it is without discrimination. What more can I do? Tonight, we wanted to give you a gift in the midst of a global pandemic and the struggles we face individually and collectively. Number one, to have something to be grateful for. That's the first part of the message. But there's a second, and it's also that clear next step on, so what do we do with generosity? What do we do once we realize that we've received so much? I think we recognize the calling to be generous back, to do more where we are. So I'm going to, in a moment, pass the baton back to my friend Michelle and to Major, and to give them an opportunity to carry us forward into the evening at hand. But I want to give us an opportunity tonight to hear this question again, but also to answer it. I commit to. What's something that you felt tonight that you'd like to take action on? And then I wanted to leave you with my number as a way that you and I can stay in touch beyond this evening celebration. I encourage you right now, if you would like to receive a Saturday message that I send out to a community around not only Kent County, not only Michigan and Indiana, not only Missouri in the United States, but around the world. If you'd like us to send you a message that goes out every Saturday morning, just text me your email address right now. So my number's on the screen, but the number is 314-202-5373. If you'd like to receive that Saturday text message, a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of hope, a little bit of love, just text me your email address to 314-202-5373. Final time, 314-202-5373. Text me your email address, and two things are going to happen. Number one, Saturday morning, baby, I'm going to show up back in your life via text message. It comes to you from my friend, my coach. He's a human being. His name is Matt Miller. So he'll be sending out my messages on my behalf. That's number one. But the second thing is this. If we can serve you, if we can make a difference for you, if we can pray for you, if I can serve someone in your community, if there's someone longing for inspiration or hope or a clear next step, hit reply. We recognize that we are here through God's grace and through the community showing up for me. And if ever I can become part of that salvation for someone else, hit reply. We want to do life together. That's why we call this program Live Inspired Together. So I'm looking forward to doing life with you. I'm so grateful, Major, for the opportunity of serving in your community. I'm looking forward to staying in touch with you beyond this evening. So for this time and until next time, my name remains John O'Leary, and this remains our day, my friends. Live inspired and recognize this. We've received, and now we have an opportunity to be generous, to give, to ask the question, what more can I do? Thank you again. Have a great evening.
So from a Salvation Army perspective then, what can we do to make tomorrow better than today?
That's a great question, and John has got me thinking about that a lot. Obviously, we've talked tonight about volunteers. Volunteering is a great way to give back to the community, and it doesn't take a lot of people. It doesn't always take a lot of time. It's just being there consistently, as John has shown in his testimony this evening. We also would encourage people to make donations. Continue to support the Salvation Army through online donations, through mail donations. We have a new program this year where if you can sign up for a recurring monthly donation, it can be taken directly out of your bank account or charged to your credit card automatically. You don't have to think about it. So those are lots of ways that you can help, and just continue to support your neighbors who are in need.
Yeah, lots of ways to help. And we know that West Michigan is so generous, of course,
They
to
are.
do it. We want to thank John O'Leary for being so generous with his time and his wonderful message tonight. And of course, thank you for attending tonight's event. We look forward to seeing you in person as soon as we're all able to do that.
Right. And for those of you who are interested, you can share this link. It will be available on our website afterwards. And it'll be available for some time now so that you can share what you've experienced this evening with your family and friends and coworkers. Again, the great, incredible generosity and compassion of our friends here in Kent County have made it possible for us to serve literally thousands of people. You'll see on the screen just an infographic with all of the different types of services that have been provided. It relates to thousands of meals, thousands of nights of shelter, reassurance phone calls and visits to seniors. All of those things are possible because you make a difference. individually. So we'd encourage you to join our website or log into our website, sakentcounty.org, and see how you can get involved.
Yeah, well, Major Caddy, thank you for all you do and all your years of service. Of course, it certainly makes a difference.
Well, we want to thank you again, Michelle, for helping us this evening. Thank all of you for taking part and for the way that you will continue to reach out to our neighbors in need. We also want to direct, after we're done, direct you to our website, but also to the slide that'll be on the screen. It'll list for us the sponsors that have donated and helped make this evening and our continuing service possibility here in Kent County. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.